Have you ever managed a team full of absolute rock stars, but somehow they just couldn't get the project across the finish line? Yeah, you're definitely not alone. Welcome to this explainer. Today we're unpacking the ultimate strategic tool for team leadership. We're moving way past the basics of just managing people, and we're going to explore how to truly influence collective excellence. We'll see how team building and team leadership aren't just HR checkboxes. They are core strategic capabilities of a leader's mind. Let's jump right in and shatter a really common myth right off the bat. Team building is not an activity, and team leadership is not a position. Think about it. You can have a team packed with highly talented, exceptionally smart individuals and still completely fail to produce results. So why does that happen? Well, it's because while talent is strictly individual, true performance is relational and systemic. Actually, research analyzing over 7,000 teams revealed something kind of shocking. Raw talent does not dictate success. Intra-team trust does. It's literally all about the relationships and the invisible dynamics between the people in the room. Because of those dynamics, there's a fundamental question every leader really has to ask themselves. Instead of just wondering how to force people to work together, you need to ask, how do I create the conditions in which people willingly combine their strengths? This is an absolutely crucial shift. Your formal authority might make someone comply with the directive, meaning they'll do the bare minimum just to not get fired, but it's your influence that makes someone actually want to bring their A game. We really need to focus on creating an environment where people challenge each other intelligently, take real ownership, and achieve together what they could never possibly pull off alone. And there's a huge difference between what most companies do to try and solve this and what actually works. Taking your team out for escape rooms, laser tag, or grabbing a nice dinner together, that's just team bonding. It creates familiarity and laughter, which is great, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't stop people from undermining each other in the Monday morning meeting. Actual team building, on the other hand, fundamentally changes the way you collaborate long after the fun activity is over. It's about creating deep trust, establishing behavioral norms, and actively resolving the friction that naturally pops up when human beings work together. So here's our blueprint for this explainer. First, the team performance equation. Second, our main focus today, the 7C framework. Third, trust and psychological safety. And fourth, the leader's daily influence. Section 1, the team performance equation. Now, take a look at the math here. The team performance equation uses multiplication, not addition. It's purpose times trust, times clarity, times collaboration, times accountability, times learning. So why does that distinction matter? Because in a multiplicative equation, a single zero wipes out the whole shebang, literally straight to zero. If you have phenomenal purpose and clarity, but absolutely zero trust, the entire team's performance multiplies out to nothing. Purpose without clarity just leads to confusion, right? And trust without accountability, that just creates a comfortable stagnation. You really need high levels of every single one of these variables to prevent the whole system from breaking down. Moving to Section 2, the 7C framework. This framework is the real meat of our explainer today. It's the engine you'll use to build that high-performance equation. The first C is clarity. We have to constantly ask, where are we going? This means we must meticulously define our purpose, our goals, and our individual roles. What happens when a team lacks clarity? You get busy work. You have an entire team sprinting at top speed, burning tons of energy, but they're all running in completely different directions. Your team needs absolute, unwavering clarity on priorities and success measures before they can actually execute. They need to know exactly what a win looks like today, this week, and this quarter. Next up is connection. Do we know and value each other? This is all about building respect, empathy, and rapport to foster a shared sense of belonging. Now, connection isn't just knowing someone's favorite coffee order or where they went on vacation last summer. It's about understanding their deep working style, their stress triggers, and their unique strengths. It's recognizing what they actually need to feel supported. True connection takes a group of strangers fighting for limited resources and turns them into a unified front, ready to tackle a shared problem. Then we have to build confidence. Do we actually believe we can succeed together? Research shows that team efficacy, this collective confidence, is strongly tied to actual performance, especially when team members really depend on one another. But how do you actually build this as a leader? Well, you definitely don't do it through cheesy motivational speeches. You build collective confidence through small wins. You set an achievable goal, you hit it together, and you demonstrate collective competence over time. Success literally breeds the confidence for more success. Our fourth C is where things get really real: candor. Can we speak honestly? Have you ever sat in a meeting where everyone just nodded along in agreement, but you knew for a fact they all thought the plan was terrible? Yeah, that is a textbook lack of candor. Candor empowers your team to disagree intelligently, admit mistakes, ask for help, and flag risks early without any fear of retribution. A team doesn't become intelligent just because you put smart people in a room. It becomes collectively intelligent only when people can safely challenge assumptions and combine their different perspectives. And that honest, candid environment evolves supernaturally into our fifth C, collaboration. This takes your team on a really vital step-by-step journey. We start at basic cooperation, which is basically just staying out of each other's way. Then we move up to coordination, kind of like passing the baton in a relay race. But as trust deepens, we hit true collaboration, and this ultimately culminates in co-creation. Co-creation is the absolute pinnacle. That's when your combined strengths build a brilliant solution that no single person could have ever dreamed up on their own. For the sixth C, commitment, we focus intently on who owns what. We need to transition basic expectations into tangible results through an escalating sequence. I mean, anyone can accept a task, but we're looking for way more than that. You set an expectation, which becomes a clear responsibility, which then absolutely must turn into deep, shared ownership. True ownership means you might actually lose a little sleep over the outcome because you care that much about it. Only when you reach that level of commitment does it translate into meaningful action and, finally, a stellar result. Finally, continuous learning caps the 7C framework. After every single major project, a high-performing team has to ask, what worked, what failed, what surprised us, and most importantly, what are we going to change for next time? This isn't a finish line, you guys. It's an iterative loop. Without this final C, a team might succeed once just through sheer luck or brute force, but they will never scale that success. You have to institutionalize the postmortem because performance without continuous learning leads to an eventual and inevitable decline. Section 3, Trust and Psychological Safety. This is the invisible currency that makes all of those 7 Cs function properly. Trust isn't just looking at your coworker and saying, I like you. It's fundamentally believing they will act reliably and have your back. Think about the environments you've worked in and how trust interacts with accountability. If you have high psychological safety but low accountability, you get a culture of comfort. It's essentially a country club, super friendly, but nothing meaningful actually gets done. On the flip side, if you have high accountability but low safety, you get a sweatshop driven entirely by fear. People will hide their mistakes just to survive. True high performance only happens when we make it perfectly safe to speak up without fear of humiliation, while at the exact same time, making it strictly necessary to hit our standards. Of course, that psychological safety will eventually get threatened by conflict or a mistake, but a mature leader doesn't try to eliminate conflict. They empower it. The next time a deadline is blown, just watch what your brain naturally does. Minute 1, you see the fact. The deadline was missed. Minute 2, human nature makes you jump to a toxic interpretation. Oh, they just don't care, or they're lazy. As a leader, you have to intercept that thought right there. Stop yourself. Instead, move to interest in minute 3. What actually prevented the delivery? Then, option. What can we change right now? And finally, agreement. Who's going to do what, by when? This timeline approach is a game changer. It swiftly converts toxic blame into active problem solving. Section 4, the leader's daily influence. Let's see how you can apply this exact mindset to your daily leadership routines. Because remember, your team rarely becomes consistently better than the behavior you consistently demonstrate. Here is the ultimate relief for any overwhelmed leader out there. 80% of your impact comes from just 20% of your behaviors. It's the classic Pareto principle applied to team management. Far too many leaders spend 80% of their energy managing minor issues, putting out tiny daily fires, and micromanaging stuff that shouldn't even be on their radar. You don't have to do everything, you just have to do the right things. So instead of draining your energy on micromanagement, focus fiercely on specific, high-leverage behaviors. Seriously, don't sweat every little detail. Instead, clarify the priorities, build trust, listen deeply to your team without instantly judging them, address conflict the very moment it arises, delegate intelligently, and honestly, most importantly, ask powerful questions. Asking a provocative, well-timed question often does infinitely more to advance a complex project than stepping in and doing the work yourself. This is exactly how you guide your team's intelligence. Remember, your ultimate goal isn't to create clones who think exactly like you. It's to create people who understand the shared mission well enough to think brilliantly together. To maintain that strategic focus when circumstances inevitably change, and let's face it, they always do, you can use a method originally adopted by fighter pilots for split-second strategic decisions. It's called the OODA loop. When chaos hits, don't just react emotionally to all the noise. Cycle through this simple 4-step loop. First, observe what is actually happening on the ground. Second, orient yourself to what it means in the broader context. Third, decide what matters most right now. And fourth, act on the next intelligent move. Then, immediately repeat the cycle. Doing this builds a highly strategic mind rather than a purely reactive one. I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought to ask yourself every single week. Is my team becoming more dependent on me or more capable without me? If you're applying the 7 C's, institutionalizing continuous learning, and focusing ruthlessly on those high-leverage behaviors we talked about, the answer will be the latter for sure. If you build a culture of true candor and trust, they won't need you to hold their hands. You are successfully transforming from a mere manager of individuals into a true architect of collective intelligence. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and go start building that capability today.